Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is my review of The Rise of Skywalker, the 9th and final installment in the Skywalker Saga. Right, so basically that's it. That's Star Wars finished, completed, 100% completion, game over, on to the next thing. This film was a mess. Like, messy film. They had the thankless task of following The Last Jedi, which I think is possibly bottom in terms of quality within the Star Wars main films for me. I think it and Attack of the Clones were my least favourite by far, but I think that The Last Jedi did noticeably more damage to the world of Star Wars than any other film that came before it. I think that The Rise of Skywalker had to try to fix a lot of the problems caused by that film, while also giving an end to the saga, which they didn't need to do, but they decided that they were going to, which is kind of weird. So there's going to obviously be some light spoilers in this, maybe some heavy spoilers depending on how much I decide to rant, but if you do not want any spoilers, my advice would be just to not watch this video at all until you've finished watching the film, see it in the cinema, and then come and watch this afterwards. In terms of the plot, I think that there was far too many jumps. This felt like more than one film rammed into one film's runtime. I think that they tried their best to handle the characters. I felt that I actually enjoyed most of the characters in this film a lot more than I did the previous films. So for example, the relationships between the characters felt a lot more natural now than they did in the Last Jedi, especially, but even The Force Awakens. I thought that this film did a much better job at paying respects to the previous characters that we loved. For example, Luke, Leia, even Lando, and Han. Really, when he showed up, it felt natural. I was very impressed with the way that they handled the situation with Leia. I felt that they were very good at making sure that she felt loved without making it feel like the whole film was building up to her death. The way that they handled it felt very natural, and it was a nice send-off to Carrie Fisher herself, which was very much appreciated by me anyway. The small inclusion of Luke and small inclusion of Han, I felt very naturally tied into the character side of the story, even though the Han aspect didn't really make much sense in universe. If he was just purely a memory of Ben's, and that was why he was able to communicate with it, that's fine. It just feels odd to see characters return in a sort of real world sense and have no explanation for it. Now, the plot for this movie was like a video game, trust me, I play a lot of them. A lot of it felt like, oh, go and get this from this place. Oh, now that you're here, you need to go to this place to get this thing, and then go to this place to get this thing. And it just sort of felt like they were just going back and forward across the world, doing menial tasks, with a little bit of Star Wars thrown in there. I felt that there was too many fake deaths in this film. I mean, Kylo Ren has like 3 or 4 on his own, and then there's a situation with Chewbacca, and then also you think that C-3PO's getting full wiped, which is like, okay, but they made so much of a deal out of it, even though he's barely spent any time with these characters. It's just, a lot of things in this last trilogy feel like they're made a big deal of in universe because they're a big deal to the audience, which doesn't make sense when it's new characters that are doing it. The whole idea of this film being finally stopping Palpatine is only an issue because they decided to bring him back. He was dead. He was in the Death Star. He was thrown down the huge big shaft thing that Vader chucked him off. He hit the bottom and there was an explosion, right? And then they all escape the Death Star. They're flying away and then it explodes again. But he survived because unnatural things are allowed by the Sith. The dark side allows for things that they're just fucking death-defying at that point. It's, yeah. I came out the cinema after this film feeling reasonably happy. And I think that can be put down to how low my expectations were going into the film. I really expected nothing from this film. I thought it was going to be an absolute shit show. And while it wasn't a particularly well balanced or well paced film, especially considering it's part of a trilogy and it felt rushed and not really much else feels like it was done in the trilogy, I feel like I came out that film with the feeling that whoever was in charge of this film, obviously J.J. Abrams directed it, but whoever was writing the film, I'm not sure if it was also J.J., they seem to have a bit more respect for the source material. Now, not to say that they didn't make any mistakes in the film and that the film's amazing. It's not. It's an absolute bloody mess. There's MacGuffins fucking everywhere. And it directly contradicts the previous film's story using some shitty excuses. Like, shitty excuses. But it feels like the heart was in the right place. They were trying to get it back to the Star Wars that the fans loved, and for the reasons that they loved them, and gave the old characters a good send-off, where the previous film and even the first of this trilogy didn't do a particularly good job at, but the second film effectively shat on fans. This film feels as if it was an apology for that. They had to provide a multitude of throwaway lines as excuses why the stuff in the last film's kind of bullshit. Don't think that that's going to continue. Which was funny to see in the cinema. A couple of other small complaints I have is the kiss between Ben and Rey was so fucking awkward. It was like, why is this happening? Right, so I'm going to put some context in here, right? So, Rey has spent her whole life without a family, up until the events of The Force Awakens. She meets Han Solo, and basically attaches to him like a father figure. And then Kylo kills him, and okay, you're then like, right, that sets up the villain. She's going to hate him. He's going to dislike her because he feels that she's been naive, and she's going to get trained off Luke. And then, hero, villain, clash them together, lightsaber duels. It'll be good. The problem is, the second film comes along and convinces you that Rey kind of fancies Kylo. Not a huge fan that he killed his dad, but nothing really that strongly against him. There was a small romance built in there, but fucking why? Why? I don't fucking get it. It doesn't make sense. And then in this film, she seems angry the whole time at him. And then at the end, she sort of, he turns to the light, not directly from her, because of fucking Han. And then he sort of saves her life. And then she just lays a kiss on him as if they'd had a budding romance the whole time. It's just, this trilogy's bad. I'm gonna do a whole video on why I don't like the trilogy. This film, I have mixed feelings about. I feel like it's not the worst Star Wars film that we've ever had. I don't like the fact that they brought Palpatine back. I feel that negates from the end of episode 6. And this trilogy should have been building a new generation of Star Wars films, when in actual fact all they've done is use it as an excuse to latch onto the old generation, because their new attempt in The Last Jedi didn't pan out. And now they've totally course corrected, thinking that a new story is a bad thing, when it's not. It's just, that was a shit story, and it was built on one man feeling that he knows better than everything that came before. If he wants to write a story in space that he wants to write, make your own fucking world, Ryan. It's not for... This world is not here as a playground for you to come in and fucking break all the rules, like hyperspace travel, light speed travel and shit like that. It's just fucking annoying. But instead of just ranting about the trilogy overall, I think this film was okay. It's probably not going to sell too well. People have lost all faith in Star Wars because of The Last Jedi and Solo, and even The Force Awakens. When you look back on it, it's not a great film. It's fine. It relies on a lot of nostalgia, which was, maybe you could get away with that for the first one in the trilogy, just to introduce the new characters alongside a bit of nostalgia so that you remember it's definitely Star Wars, and then move on to something new. But they changed from Star Wars is great, look at this nostalgia, new Death Star, to Star Wars is shit, Luke's shit, everything that you remember is shit, look at this new stuff. And then now, in the last film, JJ's effectively had to go, no, sorry, we don't actually mean that. We do actually like Star Wars. Please keep consuming our products and spending all your fucking money on it. The problem I have with this film is that it doesn't fill me with enough confidence that the future films won't just resort to the Last Jedi style storytelling and just not have the original characters in it, whatever they do in the future films. I think they'll probably spend a bit of time looking back. I think we might have a bit of Clone Wars and Knights of the Old Republic style timeline placed stories before they try and do anything in the future for episode 9. So I think there might be a reasonable gap between the end of Rey, Finn and Poe's storyline and the start of the new one. I hope that... It's a shame, because I kind of like the characters of Finn, Poe, and I like the idea of revisiting these characters at some point. Some of them. But I also like the idea of completely starting again and following the story of somebody as they find out they have the Force or can use the Force, and their process of figuring out, having no fucking Force ghosts or anything training them, just them learning on their own, playing around, being creative, figuring out even new ways that Yoda, Obi-Wan and stuff had never used. Let's see how they use the Force going forward. That would be interesting. But I have no faith in them. And it's not directly from this film, it's everything just before it. It feels like the feeling I got at the end of this prequel trilogy. I thought at that point, I didn't think that Revenge of the Sith was a particularly bad film. I thought it was better than the previous two, but it did not give me enough faith that Lucasfilm would be able to deliver another good film. And then when Disney bought the rights to Star Wars, I thought, oh, this might work out then. They'll be able to put a lot of money towards it and get some of the best writers. And then special effects, music, all of that. Nothing will be a problem for them. But they've broken the faith I had in them to do it. So this video was sounding very negative, but I kind of did enjoy the film. It felt desperate. It felt like they realised they fucked up, almost as if they don't know how they fucked up, but that they know that they did. And that they're just desperately trying to get everyone back on sides, that the next films that they films that they come out with is received better, which is not the way to make films. That's similar to what DC did. It's not great. I think I'll go into this more in my trilogy related video. But I think they need a big change up within their Star Wars hierarchy in Disney in order to make sure that this franchise does not go to shit. Because it certainly feels like it might be. And they need to stop that, because this is probably the most lucrative franchise there is in the planet. Because unlike Marvel, for example, they're not limited by the characters effectively having to adhere to comic book rules even slightly. They can do whatever the fuck they want with Star Wars as a universe, and it has some incredible powers available to you to write a good story on, but they just fail to do so. And at least in these main trilogy films, it's like they haven't known how to handle it. It's a real shame. But anyway, I've ranted enough about this film. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't as good as I hoped it was going to be. It's a middle ground film, and it's not the best ending to the saga. I think episode 6 was a much better ending than episode 9 felt like it was. And that's us for Star Wars, for at least the foreseeable. They'll come up with another thing to do, but you know, we've got the Mandalorian. I can catch up on that and see what that's like. So that was my thoughts on episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I'd like to see what you think though, so whatever you thought about the film, comment below and let me know. If you liked this video and you want to see more, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button as well so you get notifications when I get a new video up. And I will see you next time. Have a good Christmas, have a good New Year. Goodbye.